So I purposely picked this gameplay to talk about the Ghosty Sib dynamic because this gameplay is a perfect example of main AR Ghosty taking the front role and Nasty playing more like the hill time, OBJ being like the slower, less interactions in this game. And I want to talk about the pros and the cons to Sib and Ghosty working together. And this gameplay was a perfect example, mostly focusing on number 5 on the minimap, not the actual game. But I'm going to go through some pros and then I'm going to go through some cons and also more cons in another clip near the end. But I think the pros and cons of Ghosty and Sib on the same team is they're both versatile ARs. Like both of them have the ability to be able to play slow, play fast, do the dirt work, allow the other one to shot. Like both of them have the capabilities of doing it. But counterpoint to that is Sib now being in this environment. I mean, I'm sure he's got to come in with some sort of respect. But my question is he going to come into this team, which you would argue is a lesser team than the Cloud9 team? Like, he joined like the world champs, Hydra, Sky's Kismet. He came into that team kind of like to plug in. Like, so he didn't really come with much of an ego because like they just won 3 events plus champs, or I mean 3 events including champs last year. So he's coming to that team. You can't really like big dick on that team when you haven't really won shit and they just won 3. So I'm curious if like the dynamic of him coming to this team is going to be like, man, like I'm trying to do my thing on this team. Like I'm like he's probably thinking he's better than everyone on this team. Like realistically, may not say it out public, but thinks he's better than it. So I'm curious if like he would even want to like play like, not that they're gonna have designated AR roles. I mean, Ghosty's obviously gonna be the main. He's gonna be like the flex, but Ghosty had the freedom on this LA Thieves team to like do his thing. Like in this game, when they made this tremendous comeback against like the Thieves, like Ghosty's free roaming. You notice number 7 always on the hill. Ghosty's pushing out cuts and shit. He's doing whatever the fuck he wants. Like he's in flow state. I'm curious if like Sib's going to like want to be like the other person on like the hill, you know, like doing that thing. But I'm thinking if they pick up Envoy's another person. Envoy and Joe could both cover it. But you can't have both your SMGs playing slow. Like one of them has to be able to push out cuts as well, right? So I'm curious if like there's gonna be an ego or not. That's like one of the cons. I have other cons at the end, but that was the con to counter that pro point, is if he's gonna be like, man, I'm just like like I'm not trying to do the same shit I was doing. Like he's probably thinking he could use this LA Thieves team as like a chance to really show what he feels he's actually capable of and knows he could do on the map. But I mean, not saying Ghosty's like a free roaming AR like every game, but this is a perfect example of a game where like he was feeling it and Nasty's like, hey bro, I got your hills, bro. I got your hills. Like, and like even a scenario like this where he's on the hill right now in P3, completely different because most teams play obviously to try to get the other team spawning in here, trap them in here, so and then you can have a P5 rotation. But I think Nasty, like at first when, and I actually still do agree with the point that Nasty, they probably can upgrade with Nasty, but I actually thought Nasty brought so much to this LA Thieves team. And Ghosty did pick Nasty. Like Ghosty liked playing with Nasty. He picked him for a reason. But you can't argue the point of pack a punching. Um, I'm very high on Nasty, and I think he actually should be in the league next year. He did so much that the stats don't show of just being a team player, and he did have big moments in big games, big gunfights, big plays. Like he's not a bad player at all. But if you look at the overall LA Thieves, they got second EDWC, but throughout the year there was a lot of inconsistency. But you could argue the same with Cloud9, a lot of inconsistency, and like some of the ways they were winning. Granted, they did beat Toronto Ultra like twice, but like the ways they beat them, I'm not sure if it's much of a critique for me to say because I have said it before and people said like, hey, you know, like you can't beat teams all the time by just like 3-0ing them, 3-1ing, dominating them. But like they didn't really have a dominant win against like a top team, I think, besides like Ultra. But I always like felt like some of the ways they would win would almost just be like them sneaking it out or like just like gritting it out, which is a good quality to have. So I shouldn't even be like commenting on it honestly, but I'm thinking like especially a player like Ghosty, they're probably thinking there's a more consistent, more dominant way that they could win that could like bring out the best in players besides like sometimes squeaking things out. Like these close games against Miami, I mean every team has close games, but um I just think they're probably thinking they could upgrade from Nasty and just be more consistent, be able to shoot better against the best teams. Like if they play against like a Phase or Optic, is Nasty really gonna be like as great as I think Nasty is? Like, is he gonna be a consistent shooter against Optic Phase? I mean, can happen. He could have pop up games, but I think with Sib, maybe they're thinking there's just like, I mean, obviously Sib is the better player, but I think Nasty brings a lot just teamwork wise, and like that's why the LA Thieves team worked out. But I mean, that's like my main point of that. Like, I think Nasty's good, and like I was agreeing with people saying that they should switch him out because literally everybody was saying it. But I mean, I also wouldn't be mad if he was on the team next year, but it's probably not going to happen because he already took LADs out of his bio. I'm not even sure if he even was in his bio in the first place. I'm assuming it was, and he fucking took it out, which means he's off the team. But I think he would have been, but I'm thinking this Sib thing is either going really, but you could say the same thing about every roster, either going to go really well or really bad. And this is going to bring me into my cons, like right when this game's over. I'm going to show a couple clips and then like you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But this game was a superstar performance, like from Ghosty. Like 37 seconds in hill, like I'm not getting on the hill, I'm fucking slaying. Like Ghosty was him in this match, and Nasty Litigant, like this is like prime LA Thieves. And if Sib's able to, and I mean prime LA Thieves in terms of like teamwork and like splitting responsibilities of a person's having a good game, allowing them to shine, that's what I'm talking about. I'm curious if Sib could plug in and like just be a better shooter than Nasty, but still keep all like the same great fundamental things that Nasty brings. Because honestly, for the most part, I thought Nasty played pretty fundamentally correct. There were like a lot of wrong things, but I see a lot of wrong things with like a lot of the teams like outside the top three. But everybody does do sketchy plays as well. But we're gonna get into the cons.
I go.
That was Dan. Dan was got to me. The only thing that if Dan was making me tweak was just the fucking.
No one's out, right?
It's just like.
Which one?
No.
I trophy time for you.
Nah, Dan is literally such a good teammate. In terms of like in game, Dan's a god teammate. Outside of the game, he's checky, and he knows he is.
He just mid.
In game, this guy's literally like I team with this guy over anyone. Outside of the game, he is checky as fuck.
No, debuff running at you.
No, but in game, I will say I'm not gassing this. He's the smartest pro player I've ever played with. 100%.
Nice, Damon. Good shit.
I can say that without a fact. No doubt in my mind, he's 100% this.
Watch out, 8 burst that time.
Why didn't you guys resign Ghosty? I know it worked out, but I just want to know the process. Well, him and Brandon didn't really like. They didn't really clash that good, to be honest. That's kind of like the main reasoning. In game or out of game, both. I could see both sides, to be honest. Like I could kind of see both sides to an extent. Dan's first year on Optic. Dan definitely was a checkout last year. I'm sure, like he definitely changed this year. I could just tell by like the outside looking in. He's definitely matured a lot in a good way.
This is like the big con on my mind. And the biggest con isn't even in game. I think it's more out of game. So what we see of Ghosty from like the fans' point of view, like we see like a super chill guy. Even when he's on Optic, like cool guy, great plug for the team, like doing all. But we don't see like the out of game behind the scenes stuff. And I've heard this from Shotzzy. Can't find like the Dashy clip. Dashy also said something about it as well, like along like the same lines, like. At a game, you know, like there's like some personality stuff, and I am wondering if him and Sib together in game as well as it would probably mesh if the out of game shit, if they're just both gonna super check each other and toxicity outside of the game, like it could either be like a very good in game but out of game, because we've seen it in the past, like Aches, Krim, and all that stuff, but like they're able to put their like those were like grown men back in the day that were able to like actually be mature and separate outside from in the game. But these pros nowadays can't do that type of stuff. Like has to be clicking on every cylinder. Like we don't hear any pro player group nowadays who just hate each other outside the game, but then they play the game and it looks like they're like the best fucking teammates of all time, you know? We don't see that nowadays. So I'm curious if the out of game toxicity with Ghosty and Sib could happen and that just like poisons the whole team. That's what I'm curious about because like I said earlier, like I think Sib, if he does come into this team, rightfully so, but like has to find a way to approach it. I think he's the best player on the team, but like how is he going to like incorporate that with like the in-game shit? Is he gonna plug in and make this team better, or is he gonna make them worse by like trying to do things his way? So I guess like we'll actually find out on that. But we've heard this from Dashi and for Shotzzy. I don't even know like the specific out of game stuff. I know what they mean in terms of like I know what they mean, but I don't know how to say it. Like I'm assuming, I'm not saying it's on the lines of Illy, like when like he loses how like toxic he is. Like I'm not sure if it's along those lines or if it's something else, but I mean maybe one day like we'll find out. I don't know, but yeah, that's another big thing. And another point that I was going to bring up that I forgot about is we saw the exact same thing from Sib as well. Okay, so Sib like don't want to pick him up at first, like you know, like everyone knew how like wild he was, like out of pocket he was. Got a chance on Surge. We saw on Surge, like whenever you see him on land, bro, ice in his vein, like just like quiet, like reserved, bro. But in my mind, I'm thinking, man, like this guy's just like I know he wants to like you know, but he's just like calm, cool, collected. Whole. I kind of feel that could be the same thing with Ghosty, because now we see Ghosty on land, like you know, like not celebrating shit unless after like he wins, but we see him a lot calmer. But then we hear this stuff like behind the scenes. So I'm curious if like they're literally doing the exact same thing, where like they're like calm and reserved, but like in the right scenario, like they'll go right back to like their old way, you know, that type of shit. That's what I'm also kind of thinking about, but I'm not sure.